closed session. And in that closed session, you'll have a vigorous discussion. You'll hear from your attorneys. You'll hear from your, in our case, the village manager. In your case, the superintendent. And you're going to have to make a call when you come out. So I've been in there. I know what you're about to face, and I very much I want to kind of preface my comments and really frame my comments in that way. I've also represented government entities. I've served as a special assistant state's attorney for several counties in Illinois, and also represented government entities across the country. So I have some experience there, both in representing government. I also have sued government entities. So I kind of got a little bit of both on both sides. Now, tonight, one of the things that maybe we wouldn't cover because you didn't have an attorney in front of you is the legal issue here, the Office of Civil Rights from the Obama administration. That threat, it needs to be made clear that that threat has no legal ground. I wish I could bring these guys with me to my appellate arguments. Look, clearly, no federal court has ever forced a school to open its boys' locker rooms and bathrooms to girls, or its girls' locker rooms and bathrooms to boys. Period. End of sentence. You can find me a case, and I'd love to read it, but there is no such case based on the exhaustive reviews we've done. In fact, even in the cases that we've seen where these policies have been challenged are policies involving colleges. So you're dealing with adults, students, and the courts have still clearly upheld the rights of schools to exclude members of the biological opposite sex from the particular restroom or locker room. Now, as well, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, we live in the Seventh Circuit. Illinois is part of it. The Seventh Circuit has dealt with this issue in 1984, dealing with a law under Title VII, which is a different section of the federal code, but at the same time has similar language to Title IX, which you're dealing with tonight. And in that case, the court said very clearly, if the term sex, as it is used, is to mean more than biological male or biological female, that new definition must come from Congress. And that has not occurred. In fact, over the past 40 years, you've seen cases across the country, including several cases this year, where courts have upheld that ruling. And even during the Senate debate on the federal law that you're considering here tonight, Senator Bert Bodily, who was a longtime Democrat from Indiana, very well-respected member of the U.S. Senate, he dealt specifically with the issue of opening up locker rooms to members of the opposite sex, and he said very specifically that Title IX was not meant for that. I often quote Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who was a great liberal lion from New York, even though I'm a conservative Republican. I love quoting him because he used to say that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And so the fact is here, no matter your political position on transgender rights, the federal law is clear that schools need not open their locker rooms and restrooms to members of the opposite sex. So, now, let's also look at the broader political context. The Obama administration, I give you this view, they're doing this across the country to school districts in every state in the union. They're taking this radical interpretation of Title IX and trying to impose it on school districts. And what you're seeing in certain places is folks fight it, and they're winning in court. You've got cases in Virginia, you have cases in Pennsylvania and elsewhere. And you're seeing this in other areas of law. So the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, there are some new regulations the Obama administration is trying to impose. They're in the immigration context, which has been great public interest. There have been some changes where frankly, the Obama administration is trying to either rewrite federal law or create new law altogether. And this is another of those areas. So tonight, as you vote as you like. But understand that federal law does not require you to accept a settlement or to in any way accede to the federal government's demands about your restrooms, locker rooms, and private showering areas in your schools. I would just, if we're going to talk law, one other little point. It's my understanding that the proposed settlement has not been released to the public. I know you're going to go in closed session and talk about it. If you come out of closed session and you think you may vote on that particular proposal, I would strongly urge you to release it to the public, give folks a few minutes to review it at least, maybe even allow a little more public comment. I would just point you to a recent decision of the Illinois Attorney General who reprimanded the College of DuPage Board for not revealing an agreement to the public prior to voting on it. And in particular, if you're going to be spending any tax dollars to implement a settlement proposal, or you're going to establish policy, it certainly is fair for the taxpayers to read that prior to your vote. Just to make that as a side comment. One of the things, too, is we talked about the legal rights of the children, all the rest of the children. You've got court decisions out of the Seventh Circuit saying very clearly, children are extremely self-conscious about their bodies. And the rulings, and if you read the court decisions on this, it's not merely about sight, being able to see the form of a person of the opposite sex. It's about presence. And so I understand that there's a policy where you allow a member of the opposite sex to go into a restroom. So, for instance, in this case, it's a biological male, transgender female going into a ladies' room where there are stalls. I mean, I just used one of your men's rooms, and I noticed that there's a wide open row of urinals. And I'm sure that you're soon enough going to have to deal with the situation of a biological female who presents as a male. And I don't quite know how you're going to curtain off a set of urinals. So I don't know if those situations have been talked about. And of course, we've been focusing on the young ladies' rights, but the young men's rights are going to be dealt with here too. But again, that presence is an issue. And so even with someone sitting at the neighboring stall, I think the ladies can speak better and have about biological processes, and it's different for the boys and the girls. It certainly, I can imagine, being very difficult for a young lady sitting there having a young boy in the next stall. And I would also remind you, too, that's a constitutional right, the bodily privacy. And you guys are state actors, as you well know, so you can violate people's constitutional rights and be sued for it. So, just a thought there. And as well, even prisoners in penitentiaries have the right not to have to change in front of a prison guard of the opposite sex. And you talk about folks who have the lowest level of rights in our society because they've been taken from them for their bad acts. They certainly have a much lower level of rights than our children. Now, I've also heard, tonight we've heard a lot. We've had some students speak, and that's great. We've also had parents of students speak. You've had your representative locally talk about, kids he talked to in the back, and there is a real issue with standing up and speaking on these issues. I know folks they're not comfortable speaking about these things in public because they've seen negative repercussions for folks that do. So I really do. I hope that you're listening to those concerns of the students. But as well, you would say, with the folks, the young boys, young girls, they're minors for a reason. We have to make the decisions for them. We can take them into account, but the parents and the adults have to make the decisions. Now, and I would say, there was one of the students said that the changing clothes doesn't occur anymore. But the Obama OCR report specifically mentioned that clothes were being changed. Maybe there wasn't full nudity, but certainly it was partial, and clothes were being changed. That is in the report which I read. As well, I'm just wondering how one has a swimming lesson without putting on a swimsuit. I don't know. Maybe you figured it out. As well, I would just point out, as you're looking at resolution for this policy, now that this has come to the public, and you've seen, I've heard about parents who got an email a month ago, and now all of a sudden you've got hundreds of people here. Most of them are parents. Many of them are parents. You really can't go back to where you were, where no one really knew, or maybe you could make a policy, a little exemption, a little exception here or there. Because once you do that, all of these parents of all of these kids and others are going to object.
Sure, you have one more minute.
Thank you. They're going to see objections. So as you go forward, please take that into account. Because, while they're never going to be more than a handful of students who will present as transgender, there will be students in this way, and you're going to have to deal with it. We've presented to you a model policy. I certainly would urge that you adopt it as it's a clear way. It's a uniform way to deal with it, and it also puts you in the strongest legal position. As well, I would note, you have also been promised legal help if you adopt a strong privacy policy, and so you should understand that, certainly not to usurp your own lawyers, but you do have that available to you, and certainly I'm glad to answer any questions you have. We've got other lawyers who are glad to answer. If any of your staff or your lawyers have questions, we're glad to help out. You've heard from your people. I'm an elected official just like you all are. When my voters come to me with this kind of fervor, and really with a strong legal background to it, I'm going to go with them most of the time, and I very much hope that you do too. Thank you.
Thank you.